Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December 11th meeting of the Comox Strathcona Hospital District Board Valley, and to all those who are joining us online, including Jesse Tarbottom, our Island Health representative today. I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional and unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and that the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District service area includes the Coast Salish, Kawakawak, and Nuu-Chulnith territories. So moving into our agenda, our first item of business is the adoption of the minutes from the October 9th meeting. A motion for adoption, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Mawini. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone opposed to adoption? That is carried. And we have our audit service plan, and we have a report dated October 20th for receipt. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Cole Hamilton. And we'll turn it over to staff to hear from our auditor's representative.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the board. Katie Powell is here. Katie's our Manager of Financial Operations, and Katie will be introducing this report.
Thank you, James, and through the CAO and the chair to the directors, good morning. The audit service plan for the year ended December 31st, 2025 is being provided today for information. The plan and the engagement letter have been prepared by M&P, the hospital district's external auditors. The audit's an annual process, so review of the audit service plan may be familiar. As a reminder, professional standards require that the auditor communicate with those charged with governance on an annual basis. The board exercises its independent authority relating to the audit by meeting with the auditors to receive and review this annual audit service plan. We're anticipating that M&P will present the audit findings report to the board in March of 2026, which is aligned with timing of the presentation of the annual financial statements. The audit service plan that's in front of you today is of similar form and content to prior year. It's important to note the questions of the auditor during this process. So Corey Vanderhorst from M&P is online today to provide a brief overview and answer any questions that you might have about the audit process. Thank you.
Thanks, and welcome, Corey. All over to you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Katie. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here to attend your board meeting today. I think the job of summarizing the sort of approach for this year for the audit is that there's not a lot different in no new audit standards, no changes in accounting, and so the financial statements will look very similar. And so the audit service plan then by result looks very similar to the prior year. Not a lot of change, which is good. Should be business as usual. The important number in the audit plan is, of course, materiality. It drives the amount of audit testing we do. It's based roughly on a percentage of your annual revenues that the hospital district brings in. So we're planning to use $720,000 for 2025. That's very similar to prior years. Of course, with the hospital district audit, with several functions that it has, we're definitely checking numbers below that amount when we're testing payments to Island Health. Otherwise, we are confirming debt balances, investment balances, and tying a requisition into budget. So materiality really only comes into play when we're looking at how much testing we're doing on the expense side of things. But with not a lot new in the document itself, I'll wrap it up, and I would be happy to answer any questions from the directors.
Thanks very much, Corey. And are there any questions or comments from directors? I do not see any, so we will thank you very much, both our presenters, and we shall move on with receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. And our next item is the 2026 provisional budget, and we have a report dated December the 5th. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grieve, seconded by Morin, and over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Kelly Broughton is our Manager of Financial Planning, and Kelly will be introducing this report on the provisional budget and recommendation. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning through the CAO to the directors. Staff are here to present the 2026 provisional budget for the board's consideration. This plan is not very different from the 10-year financial plan that we saw last month. The preparation of the hospital district's budget is guided by the board-endorsed financial planning policy. As prescribed by the Hospital District Act, regional hospital districts must prepare and adopt a provisional budget prior to the end of December of the current year. In February 2026, the board will be presented with the recommended budget. That budget will incorporate the 2025 surplus and capital carry forwards, the Island Health identified capital projects and equipment, and as well as any changes or recommendation from today. The 2026 budget must be adopted by the board by the end of March 2026. The status of the current priorities identified during the board's strategic planning are the long-term care facility. Design work was started during 2024 and will continue into 2026. The provisional budget does not include any additional or new funding for this project beyond the unspent funds from the $2,074,200 approved in 2024. Island Health will be providing an update to the project next steps. And once we have received that update, staff will incorporate that into the recommended budget or bring forward a budget amendment as needed. Included in the budget is $120,000 for up to 12 named facilities, global grants of $10,000 each. As of this point, only 6 facilities are considered named, and during 2025, $60,000 was released to those facilities. Staff continue discussions with the province to increase the number of named facilities. The budget does not include any funds for the Community Health Club. However, staff are continuing discussions with Island Health, and any project updates along with any potential funding requests from Island Health will be brought back to the board for consideration in the future. Once more details have been refined or known for any proposed capital projects, finance staff will continue further analysis to confirm the planned funding strategy of reserves and debt continues to be viable and optimal. However, staff do not foresee the need to increase the requisition beyond the current funding levels. Heading into our expenditures, for the 2026 provisional budget, many of the line items do not change. Where funding has been historically underspent, budgets have been reduced. If there is a need for additional funding beyond what has been included in the budget, staff will bring forward a budget amendment at that time. Administration and governance includes the oversight and financial responsibility the CVRD has to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. Administration remains flat at $230,231. Governance and travel have decreased by $16,500 combined. We have reduced the governance fee of $4,500 per meeting down to $4,000, and we've reduced the travel expenses due to the reduced claims that have been paid over the last 2 or 3 years. Professional fees and other include $7,000 for the annual audit, $600 for bank charges, $500 for meeting expenses, $500 for legal expenses, and $110 for additional payroll. Unconditional grants will provide $10,000 for up to 12 named facilities and $1,850,000 for the 2026 identified Island Health capital projects and equipment up to $1.5 million. Transfers from the reserve for the existing Island Health projects and capital equipment under $1.5 million and the long-term care facility design budget. We work under the assumption that the provisional budgets, that all projects will be completed in 2025. However, the actual carry forwards will be brought in during the recommended budget in 2026. Long-term debt remains unchanged as no new debt has been added. Moving on to revenue and funding. The grants in lieu and requisition amounts remain unchanged from previous years. Grants in lieu are forwarded to the municipalities for the federal buildings located in specific areas. The requisition is based on the 2025 assessed values, and it results in a proposed residential rate of 25 cents per $1,000. The tax rate will be updated for the recommended budget as the 2026 roll values are released in January. Interest revenue has been reduced by $195,600 to reflect the market fluctuations and interest rate decreases experienced during 2025. Although rates have fallen over recent months, the investment strategies employed are conservative, nimble, and fluid enough to allow staff to take advantage of favorable GIC rates and various MFA investments. The 2025 surplus will be defined in early 2026 once the year-end entries have been completed. So this chart just details the proposed residential tax impact per area for each of the apportionments. The actual apportionment between members will be updated when the 2026 BC assessment roll values are released. And when we return to the board with the recommended budget, we will also show the taxation impact per average assessed residential value in the participating areas. It is currently estimated to be $25.17 per $100,000 of assessed value. So a house valued at $800,000 will pay $201.36. Unconditional grants and projects. These two categories are funded through the current year taxation. There's $120,000 for the named facilities and the $1.85 million for Island Health initiatives, capital projects, and equipment up to $1.5 million. The Island Health project listing will be updated when we receive it in early January and included in the 2026 budget. Our long-term debt. Debt servicing remains unchanged. However, in 2026, the MFA debenture number 99 for the St. Joseph's General Hospital capital upgrade that will be fully paid off in October of 2026. Our project carry forwards. The details for projected uncompleted projects are listed in Appendix E. 2025 carry forward for equipment and projects is the current unspent. Going to say that again. The unspent current year taxation balance that is funded from the $1.85 million funded through operations. This amount will be transferred to the reserve in 2026. $6,471,000 is the balance of the unspent funding allocated to the Island Health projects and equipment currently held in the reserve. So that's for the previous years, 2024 and back. Major capital represents the year-to-date unspent funds for the long-term care facility design, and that is approved and funded through the reserves. There's a total of $180,000 available to the named facilities that remains unallocated. Our reserves. So minimal reserve contributions are planned for 2026 and 2027, with no contributions planned for 2028. As the long-term debt for the North Island Hospital project is retired in 2028, the reserve contributions will increase significantly. Reserves have been used to fund the $4.5 million each for the hub and the long-term care bed projects. The $1 million in 2028 that's coming out of the reserve is to support operations as we have 1 year where the debt overlaps. As the North Island Hospital debt retires and the new unplanned debt for the strategic projects is projected to come online. The unallocated amount of $28 million is planned for funding options for future major capital projects, asset management needs, or other board allocations. The current reserves and keeping the requisition flat are a large part of the sustainable funding strategy for the major future capital projects. So this brings us to the conclusion of the presentation. The options are there and the staff are available for questions.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Questions or comments from directors? Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You probably know I bring this up every year, but when you look to the amount in the budget that's portioned from the big pardon, electoral areas, and especially in the Comox Valley electoral areas, it totals $3,178,379. Campbell River is slightly ahead at 3,225 odd. Courtney 2.9 blah, blah, blah. So I'm just pointing out the fact that even though we are only assigned a minimum amount of weighted votes on this matter, we actually contribute much more. So I don't know how we'll ever address that. Probably never, but just to point out that the electoral areas pay the lion's share, second only to Campbell River. Thank you.
Thanks, Director. And Director Vonish online.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. My question is, as we're looking on this agenda, our next item is deciding whether we're going to fund these urgent primary care facilities, and the staff recommendation is that we don't. If we don't fund those facilities, could that play an impact on the budget here that we should be considering?
That's a good question. And Kelly, would you like to respond?
Sorry, just to clarify, so the question is that if we don't fund,
The urgent primary care centers.
it has no effect on this budget at all.
Right.
Yeah, they have not been planned or included in this budget.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the request to fund the urgent primary care centers was a new request that was not previously factored into either our strategic planning or our budgetary plans. But it's still up for discussion in the next item.
Thanks very
Anything
much.
further, Director Vonish?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks. Further questions or comments? All right. Thanks very much, Kelly, for your very thorough and detailed report. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. And we do have a recommendation that the 2026 provisional budget be adopted as presented. Moved by Grant, seconded by Terrian. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And we move on to item number 3, the funding request for urgent and primary care center and Island Health Liaison meeting update. We have a report dated December 10th. Moved by Grant, seconded by Nickel. And over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning again to the board. I'll be introducing this report. I want to recognize that Jesse Tarbotten is on the call as well. Jesse works with us through Island Health, and Jesse's been very informative and patient as we've worked through this process. So I want to thank his efforts and his attendance here today, and welcome him to weigh in if any questions arise or he's got any additional context. So at your last board meeting, the hospital board referred consideration or deferred consideration of funding the Comox Valley proposed urgent and primary care center to a meeting after we had been able to meet with Minister Osborne, Minister of Health. We did secure that meeting. We had that meeting just yesterday afternoon. And this staff report provides a bit of update on that meeting, as well as a regular liaison report that we have with Island Health. That's a chance for other topics to be discussed or dove into, especially if there's any kind of operational discussions that Island Health might want to be able to share with Chair Hillian and Vice Chair Mawhinney. Those liaison meetings are a regular practice that we have several times a year. Probably of most interest to the board today is the Minister of Health meeting, and we did have that meeting. Minister of Health and Minister of Infrastructure, Bo and Ma, were in attendance at that meeting. And there was certainly appreciation expressed by the ministers with respect to the RHD board's efforts to work with Island Health on the Health Services Hub project. They acknowledged the importance of that project and respected the length of time it has taken to get to that dialogue with the minister. They do also though recognize there are fiscal limitations with the province, and the province has prioritized the expansion of services and the addition of health resources in the form of UPCCs. And so that was clear direction provided by the province, by the minister, that prioritizing the UPCCs at this time is their direction, and that they cannot provide funding or supports for both the UPCC and the hub projects. we express the appreciation for that clarity and also recognition that we would continue to work with Island Health on the important partnership that we have around capital funding. However, at this time, the board is being asked to make a decision on providing that funding to the Comox Valley UPCCs or UPCC. And as you know, at the last meeting, the board declined funding for the Campbell River UPCC. The staff report goes on to talk about a few of the other operational matters that are of interest, and that included discussion on remote and rural healthcare funding, River Long-Term Care Facility, the hospice beds in the Comox Valley, which has been in the news recently, and just a quick touch base on the capital funding request for 2026, which we expect to see from Island Health in early February. Chair and Vice Chair, you were both on the call. If you had anything else to add to yesterday's meeting, I think that's it for an update from me, and you see the recommendation in front of you from this report.
Thanks, James. And perhaps I'll add a couple of things. We went into this meeting with relatively low expectations, but what we really were looking for was a clear message from the minister about whether or not there was any possibility that the hub would go ahead with the UPCC for the Comox Valley as part of it. And the clear message we received was that no, it would not. And part of the rationale is that the ministry sees the UPCCs in both Campbell River and the Comox Valley as a higher priority. And actually, it was stated that there are new resources available for those services, and that the opportunity to provide those new resources is seen as a higher priority than the hub, which would in fact be a consolidation of existing resources. We certainly expressed that our board had some reservations about this whole process, and that Island Health had originally approached us with this initiative. It had been part of our strategic planning for the past 4 to 5 years, and that we remained committed to a healthcare hub in the Comox Valley for the obvious benefits it would provide, not only in the consolidation of resources and the more effective use of Island Health dollars by consolidating leases, but in the improved patient care services that can be realized when you have services co-located. But again, we don't have the opportunity to get that project funded, and so we did get that clear message. I will add that while we don't have a clear commitment, the ministry would still like us to contribute to an urgent primary care center. Our sense is that it's the provision of that service in both Campbell River and Courtenay is near, and our sense is that it's a government priority whether we come to the table or not. But the minister certainly emphasized that anytime Island Health takes an initiative that involves capital funding for healthcare, they are going to approach the hospital district board and look to partner with us. So that's the context. Director Mawhinney, did you have any additional comments? Thanks for that. Online, we have Director Arbour.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and I appreciate your representation of our board with Director Mawhinney, with the minister, and that's great. That was you were able to secure that on short order between our two meetings. I think Eileen, I just want to show support for what you said. I think we spent 4 years in a conversation around a health hub, and that was in the context of Campbell River receiving a long-term care facility, and it's on that basis that this board voted to support with our finances both projects. And it looks like the Comox Valley is kind of left without the facility that had been discussed with Island Health for some time, whereas Campbell River gets theirs. So that's unfortunate. It's a little bit, but we need to turn the page. And I agree with you that we should not provide funding to those two facilities. I think it feels like the board wasted a lot of time during all those years trying to prep ourselves and gain political support and do analysis and all the rest of that for the health hub, which we were excited about. And again, it sounds like the UPCCs are going to proceed anyways. So let's leave it at that, and we can rebuild our relationship around future projects with Island Health, and including the items around the rural and remote facilities that are today on the agenda. Thanks.
Thanks for that. I'll add 2 comments. Number one, regarding the rural and remote facilities, as James mentioned in his report, we did raise that issue in the meeting with the ministers and their staff. And once again, we've talked to Minister Osborne about this on 2 previous occasions. And once again, we got the basically support in principle, but the work that the ministry needs to do to consider the ramifications. And I don't know what to read into that. I did allude to the fact that there was some concern on the part of the previous minister that this was potentially moving down the road of funding for private facilities, which these are not. But there may in fact be facilities around the province where there are implications, and that's my reading into it, that that's why there's some complexity, but it's an issue that I think we can continue to push. The other point I would make is that given that we don't have the hub to move forward with just now, although I think it should remain as an objective, we may want to consider going into a new strategic planning process to consider what sort of initiatives we may be able to partner with moving forward. And that may be something that this board can do some work on this year prior to a new board taking over in the coming year. Director Vonish.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanting to, ask it if there's any risk, if we don't fund this, is there any risk on the timing of when it will happen or the project happening at all? Are we risking anything by denying it?
This is just conjecture on my part. I would say with government funding, and particularly in the times that we live in, there's always risk. I think that that's a risk that the board will have to consider whether we're prepared to take. It's clear that UPCCs are a priority for the province and for the Ministry of Health. And I suppose if we decline to fund a share of that and find that there is delay, if we're able to discern that, our lobbying efforts might go in that direction. I don't know what the precedent is around the province in terms of hospital districts contributing or not, but that's certainly something that we can look into. Director Grieve.
So obviously they don't know how important we thought we were. Yeah, I would speak to that because having spent many years in volunteer nonprofit organizations, I realize that our job sometimes is to follow the lead of senior government. And if we have a request for funding, we always look to what is being on offer and copy the language and apply. And I think we're being very foolish and infantile here in not recognizing that and not moving forward. Is it $3 million they're asking? It's, when you take a look at what our capital budget is, it's really not that considerable. And I do think that it sends a good message to the government, puts us in the queue. Otherwise, we're not doing our citizens any service here.
Thanks, and you or any other director is perfectly free to move that when we get to the recommendation. Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding infantile, not something that we'd wanted, and we'd put good time and resources and staff effort into developing the thing. we were encouraged to put together the health hub. So I feel no need to commit to something that we'd never planned on and weren't looking for. And having heard that, I mean, I guess there is a risk, but if this is something that's going to be going ahead, regardless of our contribution, I think we often spend time talking about unfunded, downloading of responsibility, and here's an opportunity for them to move ahead without us having to contribute. And for once, we can actually keep some cash in our reserves and be ready for the next option that we do want. But I don't see anything sort of ill-considered or immature about the board's decision to, steward our money and keep it around for when an opportunity that we do plan on and do wish to proceed with occurs.
Thanks for that. There's no one else in the speaker queue right now, so it might be a good time to see if Jesse Tarbot has any comments from his perspective with Island Health, either in relation to this issue or other aspects of the report presented. Jesse?
Sorry there, that turned off my mute. Yeah, thank you very much for having me at your meeting today. I don't have any major updates beyond what I shared in October, but of course I'm very happy to answer questions if you do have them. I did provide a series of responses to James Warren's questions that are now included in the staff report that was released this morning. So some of that's in there, and I'll provide further context on those items as it becomes available. I don't think I have too much of a comment beyond that. I think we've expressed some disappointment here, but certainly understand the RHD's position. And look forward to working with you going forward on initiatives that improve health outcomes for the region. I recognize the pressures that you're balancing, and we'll continue working with you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Oh,
sorry, carry on.
That's it. I mean, I now we had been waiting to understand what the outcome was going to be with your meeting with the ministers. I didn't realize it was the Minister of Infrastructure and the Minister of Health. So that's terrific, and that you had both of them in the room. So now we have we can proceed on with the strategic work moving forward, constructive discussions with your CEO, and figure out how we can push our shared interests forward together.
Thanks for that. And Director Harbour.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is just, and I appreciate the calibration of Mr. Tarboton's comment, but I would highlight that it's fairly unusual that in the midst of a board discussion, we invite somebody to jump in without going through the CAO, and typically we have partners and staff present the report, then we have a board discussion, and as we approach the motion, I'm not sure if it was necessarily fully proper to bring them in directly into this discussion. Thanks.
All right, Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. May I ask what it precisely is the contribution we've been asked to make for UPCC in Comox Valley?
I just ask staff if we have that number handy. I can get back to you.
Probably in the minutes from the last meeting.
It was in
or the 2 meetings ago.
It was in January, February when the
so
capital request was first made.
Well, once again, I would just reiterate that we are creatures of the province, and we operate at the pleasure of the province. So sometimes we have to bow a little bit to the province. Thank you.
The request made back earlier this year, it was approximately $6 million for both Campbell River and Comox Valley UPCCs for the CSRHD's portion. Correct. 6 million.
Yeah.
3.6 for Comox and 2.6 for Campbell River, so just over 6 million.
Thanks for that. And Director Morin.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've already defeated the approval for Campbell River, correct? Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we just stay on course, and I like the suggestion of the strategic planning piece and looking at what our priorities are. I mean, the rural health, remote and rural health funding, I just see our hospital board is made up of a lot of rural communities, and so I think that needs to be part of our lens. And you know, we're not getting that funding. We are not getting the hub. You know, being asked to go in a completely different direction than what our priorities have been, and I would prefer to just kind of stay the course on what we're focused on, and yeah, and not approve that request for the UPCC. But I know we're not at the recommendation yet. Thanks.
All right, we are on receipts, and are there any further comments? All right, is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. We do have a recommendation.
I'll move it.
It's moved by Grant and seconded by Kerr. Any discussion on the recommendation? Is there anyone opposed to the recommendation? We have Director Grieve opposed. I don't see anyone else opposed. The motion is carried. Thanks very much for that discussion, everyone. And we'll move on to the resolution status report from December. Director Grant moves receipt, seconded by Director Cole-Hamilton. Any questions or comments on the resolution status report? Anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. I will just conclude the meeting today by thanking Jesse Tarbottom from Ireland Health for participating, thanking all of you. I will let you know that Director Mawhinney and myself had the opportunity to attend the healthcare forum in Nanaimo on November 13th, and there is a report from that that has just been circulated that I will share with all of you, and there's some relevant discussion, particularly related to physician retention and recruitment across our island region. And with that, I'll take a motion for termination. All in favor? That's carried. Best wishes for the season to all of you, and look forward to working together in the new year. Thanks very much.